Coming up next on Cooking Class for the Working Class, we've got our crispy Thai chili salmon with pan-roasted Brussels sprouts and jasmine rice. Hey there, I'm Chef John, and I'm a real-life working professional chef. And this is Cooking Class for the Working Class, Culinary 101. Hey everybody, Chef John here, and welcome back to Cooking Class for the Working Class. In this episode, we're going to create a dish which I'm calling crispy Thai chili salmon. And that's going to be served up with pan-roasted Brussels sprouts and a seasoned jasmine rice. And the reason it's called crispy salmon is because we're going to be searing the outside layer with the skin, and that's going to become so crispy it's going to almost taste like salmon bacon. So it also helps to sear in all the natural juices of the salmon, makes it nice and juicy. And without any further ado, let's get this show on the road. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get all of our mise en place together. So what I've got here is right from our fresh farmer's market, and here in Venice, Florida, some fresh fillet of salmon. So what I want to do is get that unpacked first from anything else. And what I do, whenever I buy any kind of fish or chicken or any kind of raw product, I always keep the packaging that it came in, because what I'm going to do is remove the product, and I'm going to just roll that up, and I'm going to keep that right in the bag that it came in, and that's going to be frozen just like that, so that I don't have to throw it in our trash can. I can wait until trash day and throw it in the trash can, and it avoids any nasty odors that you don't want to smell. Okay, so now we've got our Brussels sprouts here. We've got some red and green sweet bell peppers, which I've already diced. I've got some chopped garlic, which I've chopped earlier also. I've got sweet Thai chili sauce, and this is a hoisin sauce, both of which you can find in most supermarkets or of your favorite Oriental market. I've got some sliced lemons and some fresh chives from our garden. And here I've got some seasoned flour. Now, I like to use a seafood breader. So all this is it's a flour which is seasoned very well. This one is particularly seasoned for fish. You could take fish and just dredge it right in here, throw it in some hot oil, and boom, you got an instant fish fry going on. So we're going to use this today to dredge the salmon in before we start the fry. Okay, the next step, we're going to get the Brussels sprouts ready to go, and I've already rinsed and cleaned the majority of them right here, but just to show you all I did, you want to trim the Brussels sprout at the very base or the very little core, just a little bit, because we want to keep that Brussels sprout as whole as we possibly can. You can tear off any of the leaves that should fall off. Sometimes there's a little sand in between them, you want to clean those out. And again, we just cut that bottom core off, take off any of the excess leaves, and a lot of the sand that would be on there comes off right then and there. So the next thing we're going to do is just cut them in half, and I want to cut them in a nice, directly in half, because we're going to be pan searing the bottom of these, okay? So we're going to cut these two in half. I'm going to rinse them off. Okay, we now have our Brussels sprouts ready to go. Next up, we're going to do is our fish. So I've got this beautiful salmon here. Okay, a couple things you can do with this. This salmon has a little piece of the belly on it. Now, I like to cut the belly off, especially for this particular dish. I want it to keep, this is a nice center cut piece. It's going to be a little bit on the thicker side. So I want to keep that consistency of the thickness all the way through the whole fish. So rather than cutting the fish on my cutting board and contaminating that, I'm going to put it on a plate right here. Another video that I showed you, I wrapped the cutting board in plastic, and that eliminates any cross-contamination also. But I really like to keep the cutting board as clean as I can, clean as you go, and this cutting the fish on this plate will really eliminate all that. So all I'm going to do is cut right through that. Okay. And I'm going to cut a little bit of the end piece off that's here. Okay. Now I'm going to save these two pieces, because these two little guys here, these can be used as, I could just pan sear them and cut them off, put them in a little bit of a sour cream dip, make a salmon dip, or whatnot. Now, the other salmon here, I'm going to cut this in half. So I'm going to do what's called cutting on the bias. So this is going to help to kind of flatten out that real thick part of it, but keep the shape of the fish. So I'm going to hold the knife at a slight angle and bring it down. And we're going to cut through that skin. All right, and this salmon does have the skin on. Okay. And this salmon has also been descaled. Now, a lot of myth behind the scales. My wife and I, we very much like to have the scales on it if possible. If not, that's okay too. And one of the reasons is when we sear this, we're going to sear the skin side so that it becomes really, really super crispy. And it's just going to be such a delicacy. It's almost kind of like eating salmon bacon. So again, this doesn't have the scales on it. The scales also make it even just an extra step crispier. And by eating the skin like this is also just chock full of omega-3 acids, and it's really just super good for you. But anyway, so now we've got the two pieces of fish. They're approximately the same size. All right. And I'm going to save this belly for a little bit later. Okay. Okay, next up, we're going to get our rice cooker prepared. Now, we eat rice every day here in the Dutton house. So if you enjoy rice and you don't have a rice cooker, it would be one of the best investments you ever made. What it is, it's a little, it's a non-stick pot that it actually cooks the rice in. It's got numbers in it so you can see where to put the water. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. It comes with a steamer pot, which you could put on top, and it steams vegetables as you go. And we're not going to be using this today, so I'm going to set this aside. Okay, and you can cook any kind of rice in this. My wife and I, we really like a Jasmine rice. So what we do, we have our rice, and each rice cooker comes with a cup that you use, and it's an actual measure of the amount of rice that's going to be used for the cooking. So this is one plastic cup full of rice. We're going to put that right into the cooker. Okay. We always like to season at all costs all of our rice dishes that we prepare. So today we're going to be using a little bit of crushed red pepper. Actually, we use crushed red pepper quite frequently, so we're going to take a couple of red pepper flakes. Okay. And we're going to actually add a little bit of garlic powder to that. And we always use granulated garlic instead of garlic salt. You never want to add the garlic salt because it just has way too much salt in it. So I like to just measure out a little bit of the garlic powder. You can always tell, it's easier to look when it's in a little cup like this as opposed to just dumping it in, because you never know what could happen. You might wind up dumping the whole jar in. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right in. So that's really just granulated garlic and crushed red pepper. Okay. So next thing, we're going to add the water to it. Now, adding the water is really easy, nothing special. You can also use chicken stock if you like. You can use a tomato infused broth. We'll give you like a Spanish style rice. But for this dish, we want to get the flavors of the fish and the Thai sauce, so we're not going to be adding anything but the water to it. And as you can see, it's got the lines where to fill the water to. So I have 1 cup of rice. We're going to fill this to the number 1 line. Okay, as you can see, it's filled right to the 1 line. And that's basically 1 cup of rice and filled to the number 1 line. And we're going to put the lid on top, and all you got to do is push the button, and that's going to start cooking. And the beauty of the rice cooker, it's going to cook the rice perfectly, and then it's going to shut off and keep the rice warm to whenever you're ready. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, so next up, we're going to get ready to saute our fish. So the first thing we're going to do is turn on the pan, because no matter what it is that you cook, you've got to get your pan hot before you put anything into it. Okay, so our pan is heating up. While that's heating up, even though even though we have the seasoned flour, I like to go ahead and put a little bit of extra seasoning on it, just to give it a little bit of extra kick. And I really like to use like a Cajun spice. You can use any kind of flavoring you like, obviously, it depends on your taste. But we like a little bit of a bite, a little bit of a kick. So I like to put a little bit of Cajun spice on it, just a little bit. And try to put it on as evenly as possible. You don't want to have any hot spots, so to speak, okay? And that's just a little bit, just to get us rolling. All right, so now I'm going to place this into the seasoned flour. All right, whenever I put anything into the flour, I like to keep one hand I keep for wet and one hand for dry. So the first thing I'm going to do is put, using my wet hand, put the fish inside. Okay, put a little bit of flour on top. Now using my dry hand, okay, stays dry. So you're just not creating a mess, as we clean as we go, all right? And just to get that started in the flour, all right? Now, the pan's starting to get hot. So again, you gotta make sure your pan is hot before you put anything into it. So a couple ways you can tell. I'd like to avoid putting water in it. So take your olive oil, just put a little bit of it in. This is extra virgin olive oil. And just put a couple drops in it. When you can see that olive oil just wants to dance, run all around the pan, and you see a little bit of smoke kick up, that pan's nice and hot. So we're gonna put just a touch more in there. And this is gonna be for searing the salmon. Now I'm a big fan of using as little pans as possible. So we've got our rice cooking in the rice cooker, so that's one dirty pan. Now we're going to use this pan for both the salmon and for the Brussels sprouts. So again, we're going to get that super hot. All right, again, I got my dry hand. Okay. And I'm going to shake off any of the excess. Okay. Now typically, we always put the bone side of the fish down first. But in this case, I'm going to put the skin side down first. And the main reason is, as you can guess, we want to get that skin, and you can see that sizzling away. Just loosened up a little bit. I want that skin to get just as seared and crispy as we possibly can. All right. Music to my ears, that sizzling of the pan there. Could even just be a little bit hotter. All right, and this fish is going to cook pretty much in the whole pan by itself. But I do have the oven, I turned it on to 350, and we're going to pop it in at the last second just to finish it up. But the majority of the cooking is going to be done right here in the saute pan. Okay, and again, I want that fish to get nice and crispy on the skin. So I'm not going to play with it much. I do have my trusty fish spatula, which I talked about in one of my other videos. Just a very thin spatula. It allows you to get underneath of the fish, and it's very flexible, as you can see. Okay. You heard that click? That click was our rice cooker. Just clicked off. It just kicked into hold mode, and as you can see, we've got nice fluffy cooked rice. Voila. Okay. All right, again, so now that this pan is getting screaming hot, I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. All right, now you see how nice and brown that is? All right, that's the skin getting nice and crispy. That's what you want to see, all right? So I like to keep the fish in the oil at all times. Sometimes you might have to add a little bit more oil. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I'd rather add a little bit less in the beginning and then have to add more than add too much. Because number one, you don't want to oversaturate any food in oil. And number two, you just don't want to waste any oil. All right. So I'm going to let that simmer just for a little bit. That just sounds so good. So the next thing we're going to do is get our Brussels sprouts ready. And again, we want that pan nice and hot. Okay, so we can take a look at the side. That's the top side. This is the skin side. This is the bone side. Now the bone side is always the prettier of the sides. So typically you serve that side up. On this dish, we're going to do it a little bit differently, and we're going to serve the skin side up. And I'll show you why in just a couple minutes. All right, so now that that's cooking away, I'm going to go ahead and put that on my non-skid pan here. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is wipe this pan out just a little bit. And I'm just getting that cooked breading, that flour out of the pan. So we're going to put that back on the fire. We're going to add a little bit more olive oil. Okay. And again, we got the pan nice and hot. See that oil dancing around? Now we're going to put our Brussels sprouts in. Be careful, make sure you drain the Brussels sprouts really, really well. And I would avoid dumping them in because you might have some water in the pan and that could just have a flare up on you. So now the trick is to get all of the Brussels sprouts on the half side down. And you can go ahead and just stick your fingers in there because we're at home now and we're just having fun. All right, because we want that nice browning color caramelization on those Brussels sprouts because it's going to give them that roasted flavor. All right. Another a major misconception. Oh, we've got to boil the Brussels sprouts or we've got to steam the Brussels sprouts. You really don't. All right. So now that I've got them all half side down, I'm going to let them brown just a little bit. I'm going to touch a little bit more olive oil in that pan. Because you want to cook. And this is extra virgin olive oil. So this olive oil is so good for us. A little bit of oil, unless you're on a completely fat-free diet, is actually very healthy for you to eat. So I'm deliberately not spinning these over yet. Okay. Because I want them to get the color on them. Let's take a couple minutes and get nice and hot. And a rule of thumb, you can always cook them more. You can always add some stock to the pan, and you can always have them steam a little bit in the pan. But we want to try to pan roast them. Now, add a little bit of kosher salt, and then a little bit of black pepper. I put black pepper in everything. I put it on cereal in the morning if I could. Alright, so now, you can check one of them. Now you see how they're starting to actually turn green on top? Look at that color right there. Alright, so that's what we're looking for. So now, I'm going to add just a little bit more olive oil. Okay. See that? Now I'm going to go ahead and start swirling around the pan. Alright, that's the color. You want that color. So I'm going to pull them to the side. The next thing I'm going to do is to touch more olive oil. And you're thinking, oh my God, there's so much olive oil. But it's really not, because it's really, I'm just using a couple drops. Now to that, I like to add the garlic right to that hot oil. Because I like my garlic cooked, I like the roasted flavor of it, and I like a lot of it. So, you can just roll that around the pan just a little bit. Again, I like that roasted flavor of the garlic to come in. I don't like the raw garlic taste. Alright. Tilt the pan up and all the juices come on down to it. So, I wish you could smell this because we're smelling it roasted garlic. Now we're going to go ahead and saute it just a little bit more. Alright, now I'm going to pull this out again. I'm going to go ahead and put the peppers in. Okay. Now we're going to saute. Now the peppers are going to start to sweat a little bit, so they're going to start excreting a little bit of water. So again, at any time I can add some stock to this, or I can add a little bit of water to it, but I'm trying to get that roasted flavor. So next thing we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put our fish in the oven. I've got the oven on 350, so I'm just going to pop it in. That won't take long at all. I love to use timers, so I'm going to set that for about 3 minutes. And again, I always try to, you can always cook food more, but particularly with fish, and especially with salmon. You don't want to overcook it, so undercooking is not such a bad thing. Alright, I wish you could smell these Brussels sprouts, which are smelling really, really good. Now this pan is also going to serve as our sauce. So what I'm going to do is the Brussels sprouts are going to be mixed with the Thai chili and with the hoisin sauce, and that's going to be the sauce in the topper for our salmon. Okay. And that's just cooking, it's just sauteing away, it's getting nice and beautiful. And as this cooks, these Brussels sprouts are cooking. I love to try to cook the vegetables al dente, a little bit of crunch, at all costs. So, again, don't forget, if you like your vegetables a little bit more cooked, if I were to add some water to that pan, it would immediately start to steam. So I'm going to save that for the last minute, and we're going to deglaze it with a little bit of chicken broth, and then the hoisin sauce, and then the Thai chili sauce. Alright, it's cooking away. Smelling so good. Now I always like to clean as I go. A clean kitchen is a happy kitchen. And in my cooking videos, as you notice, there's not a whole bunch of little sous chefs running around chopping my vegetables or cleaning up after me. So that's why I like to consider myself cooking for the working class. Because when you come home from work, you don't have a whole bunch of little sous chefs there that are doing all your grunt work, as my wife would call it. So again, I try to cook in as little, use the pan as many times as I can, clean as I go, and try to keep the dishes within about 20 minutes per time. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and add our sauce to this. And what I have is a little bit of chicken broth. Now you're going to see that's going to start to steam a little bit. So that's going to finish off those Brussels sprouts. All right, and then we're going to add I've got the hoisin sauce here. The hoisin sauce is a very strong sauce, and it's also a little on the salty side. So it's best to put a little bit in at a time and do it to taste. Okay, that's our fish timer going off. Let's take a look at that. Alright, now how do we know when it's done? I like to push test, I like to feel the food. Okay, and I can tell. I've been doing this long enough that I can pretty much tell. Again, I'm going to put this in for a little bit longer, but this time I'm going to turn it and we're going to put the skin side up. Because remember I said we're going to do this a little bit different. You see that white juice coming out? That's part of the blood cooking out of it. So I want that skin side up. Okay? So I'm going to pop that in again. Alright. Let's go ahead and set that timer for another 3 minutes. Doesn't take long. And in the meantime, we got our Brussels sprouts over here with the sauce. You see the liquid? Now, the sweet Thai chili sauce, again, you can get this at any supermarket, usually has it nowadays, but also your favorite Asian store always has it. This is literally, like it says, it's a sweet yet hot sauce. So that's got a little kick to it. All right, so now look at that. We've got the Brussels sprouts that are seared. They're going to be a little bit on the crunchy side, in with the sauce. And what I'm going to do is just pull this off the fire now and reheat this when it comes time to plate up. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I showed you our rice cooker, which is just cooking away over here. Again, it's going to cook that rice perfectly, and it's going to cut off, and it's going to hold at an awesome warm temperature, and couldn't ask for a better little rice cooker. Okay, that's the timer for our fish. Let's go ahead and shut that timer off. Bring our salmon up. And you can see and hear that. You can hear that sizzling. Now that skin, hear the sizzling? That skin is good and crispy on the top, okay? I wanted to keep it that way. So that's one of the reasons why I seared it skin side down first, then we flipped it over and then finished it in the oven with the skin side up also. So how do we tell it's done? Again, it's going to be really firm to the touch, okay? Now you can cheat and you can poke a little hole in it with your fingers, just to show you. All right, you see that outside is nice and done. It's already cooked on the inside. And I'll tell you, it's okay if the fish is just a little tiny bit undercooked, because it's going to continue to cook. That's called residual cooking. And again, it's better to cook a little bit more than it is to, you can't uncook it, but once it's cooked, it's cooked. All right, so we're going to put the Brussels sprouts back on just to heat those up. And now comes the fun part. We're going to start plating up. Okay, so as promised, now comes the fun part. We're going to add a little bit of that fresh cooked rice to our plate. Let's come over to the rice cooker. I give it a quick stir. I'll bring that over. And that rice, as you can see, is nice and just as fluffy as could possibly be. Okay? And you can see those red pepper flakes. My wife and I like a little bit of heat, as you can tell. So I'm going to get one more scoop on that. And that was 1 cup of rice. 1 cup of rice is really 2 good portions, okay? So I like to keep a little tiny pile of that because we're going to have the fish coming off of it. All right, now I got the fish. There's a fat side and a skinny side. I'm going to put the skinny side going up towards the rice like that, all right, to give it a little bit of height to the plate. Okay. And now, finally, we've got these beautiful. We've got the Brussels sprouts with the sweet bell peppers and the Thai chili sauce. Okay, we're going to put a few of those on the plate, coming off of the side of the salmon, cascading down. You want to get your colors. All right, you want to present it very well. Okay, keep it inside of the rim of the plate if you can. Okay, it's looking pretty tasty. I like to put one of the Brussels sprouts facing up, a couple of them facing down, so you can see the different textures. Okay. And we got a little bit of the sauce. I'm just going to drizzle that sauce around. And you can put a little bit of the sauce if you like on the rice. I like to eat it just like it is. So, yeah. And now I always like to put a little bit of lemon juice on fish. So I'm going to squeeze a little bit of lemon on that. And we're going to garnish the plate. We're going to put the garnish. Where do we put the garnish? Wherever it needs it. All right, could use a little bit of pop of color right here. We've got a few chives from our garden outside. Okay. Now wipe that plate. Okay, there we go. We've got pan-seared fillet of salmon with pan-roasted Brussels sprouts with red bell peppers and green bell peppers, and it's with a jasmine rice, and that's served with a Thai chili hoisin sauce. Okay? So, enjoy. Eat healthy, and God bless.